Let's have a look on the power grid. On the one hand side, typically there are lots of producers and some consumers on the other hand side. This is not so simple anymore, since typically this is now a bit mixed up, since lots of households have some PV panels on their roof, so there are some producers here as well, and also some businesses and factories may produce some energy as well. But what does the traditional system look like? In Austria, we are very hydropower dominated here. There could be a run-of-river power plant, for example, and one of the biggest ones in Austria is the Ybbs-Persenborg, which has an installed capacity of 250 megawatts. What else is out there? There are some thermal power plants. They either could be heated by coal or by gas or by nuclear fission, for example. And the thermal power plant, more or less, is just a steam cooker, more or less. So heat up some power, use the steam to drive a turbine, and a generator is connected to that to produce the power. When we come into some renewable energy sources, there is wind and photovoltaic out there. And to give you an idea about the windmills capacities and photovoltaic capacities, typical windmills nowadays have a capacity of roughly 1 megawatt. So there are bigger ones out there. So offshore windmills have a power up to some 2, 3, 4 megawatts already. But that ones in Austria have a power of up to 1 megawatt. In terms of photovoltaic, of course, it's a matter of how many square meters do you install. But you can say that a photovoltaic panel produces approximately 100 megawatts per square meter. So just to give you a rough idea, to substitute one windmill when the wind is blowing with the PV plant, you would need some 10,000 square meters of solar panels to produce the same energy than one windmill does when the wind is blowing. 10,000 square meters, that's 1 hectare, or which would be a square which has 100 meters times 100 meters. So that's quite a large area. And try to imagine how many square meters you would need to substitute a large thermal power plant or a hydropower plant. What is now the big challenge in the power system? In the power system, always exactly that amount of energy needs to be produced, what is consumed, and the other way around. And there are not a lot of opportunities out there to store the energy. So there is a very typical one in Austria, especially, is hydro pump storage. So basically you have 2 lakes somewhere in the mountains, one at the high altitude, another one at a lower altitude. And what is done here is basically when there is the need in the grid to produce some energy, then water is taken from the upper basin, from the upper lake, which is running down through a pipe and through a turbine, again connected to a generator producing the electricity. When there is enough power in the grid from other power plants out there, then most of these kind of power plants have the chance already to pump back up the water. And one of the largest hydro pump storages in Austria is Kaprun. And Kaprun has an installed capacity of 800 megawatts of turbines. So when they run full power, they can produce 800 megawatts of power. And they can pump up the water with a power up to 600 megawatts, so which is pretty intense. What are the other options to store the power? These are batteries, of course. You know that from your smartphone, from your electric vehicle, maybe, whatever. And this is a super expensive way to do so. So to give you an idea, Tesla's largest battery in the Model S has 100 kilowatts of capacity. And the battery in the electric vehicles is way the most expensive part of the vehicle. So I would guess that the Tesla battery in that car costs, I don't know, some 20, 30K, or something like that. And 100 kilowatts is not a lot compared to these numbers what we have here. Let's imagine you would like to charge one of these batteries having a capacity of 100 kilowatt hours with a windmill powering with 1 megawatt. And that would mean that in 1/10 of 1 hour, so in 6 minutes, one of these batteries would be fully charged. To give you an idea what consumption would look like, a typical household in Austria has a power consumption of roughly some 3 megawatt hours per year, and this divided by the hours of 1 year means a base power consumption of roughly 400 watts. So that means that one hydropower plant of this size could produce enough energy for roughly 700,000 or 800,000 households. Way more for a thermal power plant, of course. Also, this one would fire up to 1 million households or more. And yeah, what else is out there? There are some businesses out there, of course, and this can either be a small factory or a large industrial consumer having some kilowatts up to some megawatts.